Tim Halstead here for episode 36 of the Cleveland Connection. Guys, welcome. I appreciate you coming back and checking out my channel. I wanted to throw some shout outs out there. I want to thank my wife and my family for putting up with my YouTube antics, as I call them, because it does take time to do this, and they're pretty understandable about it. Kind of like to get them in the vids. Maybe when we pull the motor out or do something else, we'll get them in there. But here's where the program is today. The Cleveland 4-barrel head. You know, if you're a Cleveland fanatic or aficionado, the block is not what keeps us attracted to this motor. The block is the Achilles heel. We know it has a poor oiling system, and you know, once you get past, I'd say 650, 700 horse, you start to work on the mains a little bit. And the head itself is the shining star of that motor. It's a canted valve, staggered valve head. It doesn't matter who thought of it, whether it was Chrysler or Ford or GM, I don't really care. There's a big thing on Yellow Bullet about the origins of it. And here's what concerns me about the origins. What I'm going to present to you. That's about all I care about. You know, the history of it. It's been around since 70 to 74. I'm going to feature some pro stock Cleveland heads. That's kind of why I'm making this video, to kind of show a comparison and evolution of the cylinder head, especially the exhaust port. Intake too, though, they're much smaller than they used to be. The other shout outs I want to go to are Todd Fuchs, 351cleveland.net. Thanks guys for sponsoring me, and thanks for the stickers, Todd. I bought some stuff from Todd recently. A nice air pan I might try to incorporate into my program on the Reher hood that I have. Thank you, Todd. This head here, and you can kind of see it, hopefully you can see it in the video. I'll get some close-ups of it. But this is an original set, this one and this one, of Cleveland 4-barrel heads. Now, I had bought a Boss motor back in the early 80s for like 500 bucks, and then I pieced it off, the distributor, the intake, the block. I think I gave to Billy Ray, because I had used it once before. And then the heads I had ported by Ford Performance Solutions, and then they went to a guy in Florida named Jorge. The best I did with iron heads ported was 1095 at 3,500 pounds. Can't remember the mile an hour. I want to say it's like 129, 28. I don't know. I can look back and see. But anyways, he had the cylinder heads. And then after that, that was a 377 iron motor. Then I switched and went to the aluminum A3 head, and I've been racing them ever since, well over 20 years. I've been racing Clevelands for 37 years. You know, and like I tell you, this is what works for me. This is my opinion on stuff. But I thought I'd bring you some cool looking parts and give you a little quick history that you don't really see on YouTube, or many people even using these heads. I will say Jimmy Huff uses them quite successfully. He's a big high port man. His cars run fast, engines run good, they sound strong. But these heads here, when I got them, they were in Cosmoline, and they're already machined. The pedestals were already machined for screw-in studs, adjustable valve tray. The rest of the ports are stock, as is the exhaust chamber. So I was going to have Billy Ray Morgan cut these off and put the port plates on here, and I'll kind of go over the exhaust evolution on this. But here's the combustion chambers here. They all look like the same Cleveland with a quench chamber. You know, the valves are canted and rotated slightly, so when they open up, they go in towards the middle of the cylinder. And big valves, 219s, you can see the cylinder has to be notched for that. But pretty much they're all the same. The difference between these stock ones is this is laid back a little in here. You can feel it, definitely. This is much sharper. But overall, the combustion chambers are cleaned up. These here, the typical aluminum head for the appearing head. But let's get back to this. So you can see just by looking at them, just the height, that this is higher compared to here. You know, in the pro stock days, the limiting factor was this exhaust port, because they designed it to fit in a shock tower car, so it had to be smooshed up. you know, to fit with exhaust fitting that shock tower. So with the Pro Stock guys, and I don't know who did it, Glidden, Gappa Roush, Bill Kuhn, who knows, I don't know. These heads here have the high port on them, where this part of the exhaust was cut off and the port was plated. We all know these, we've heard about them, we've seen them. I'll bring the camera up closer, you can get a better look at it. But I want to give a shout out to Steve Kinzel from Kinzel Ventures Limited. Steve Kinzel had the boat anchor that I featured with the 438 400M motor with the 3V heads from CHI, I think it was, and the UR19 tunnel ram. I got one of those, and I wanted to, like I said, put together a DragBoss block iron or this XE block. You know, it's cheaper to use this old block and see what it can do. So I might get that all cleaned up and blueprinted on Tim's program if we ever get into that. He was talking about doing something on some stock Cleveland blocks, like blueprinting them. But Steve Kinzel, he's going to take these heads and he's going to put it on a Pro Stock motor like I want to build. That's one of his goals. So those heads are going to go to him. I want to thank Jay Cushman for hooking me up with them. I think Steve's going to get some good use out of them. And we'll try to put some videos of that motor going together or whatever we can get from Steve. Videos, the dyno. But let's get back to these exhaust ports. So just to compare it, from the iron exhaust to the high port to the A3, the Evolution, let's measure the ports. You'll see what I mean. Just the bottom of the port, it's probably about 7/8, but I'm going to call it 1 inch just for easy numbers to work with. So that's about 1 inch from the deck height to the bottom of the exhaust port. And here's the issue. This is why the port kind of sucks, is because look at that. And then it's going down into the short turn down into the exhaust. So this isn't really doing much as far as flow. It's kind of a dead area. That's why they cut it off and raised it up. Now on this high port head, let's see what that measures to the bottom of the exhaust port. That's 2 1/4 inches. So this plate raises the bottom of the exhaust port 1 1/4 inches. That's pretty good. You think about that. When you're raising that up, that exhaust flow is leaving that port. The straighter shot, and whether it's exhaust or intake, the straighter shot has less resistance, which has increased flow. Then the port shape, size of the port, and the speed, RPM, I guess, is what gives you the velocity. So I had talked to Darren Morgan about port volume. He said he doesn't really care about port volume at all. What he cares about is what the port likes. If the port's happy and it's flowing good, then you take the volume that it gives you. You don't need to figure that part out, he said. It comes with it. So that's kind of interesting. So this raises up 1 3/4 inch. Here's the A3 head. You know, I've been racing these for well over 20 years. So this one's, we're just going to say 2 1/4 to the bottom of the exhaust port. Now, let's look at this. To the top of the roof of the exhaust is 4 inches on the A3. On this high port is 3 3/4, and on this, you look at it 3 inch. So it's pretty interesting to see the rise in elevation, so to speak, or the height of the exhaust port. And the port flow you're getting. You know, mine at one time were flowing 275. After Darren ported them, they weren't flowing that. They were flowing like 268, if I'm not mistaken. The best Cleveland 4V head I had flowed 364 on the intake and like I want to say 208 or 210 on the exhaust, which I didn't think was that great, but you know, those were those Boss heads that Ford Performance Solutions ported. I've seen port figures as high as 230 on 4V heads. Can they get there? I don't know. I suspect they can if you put enough time in them or bronze them up or something. But this is the best you're going to get right here without all that extra work, although this is a lot of work. These Pro Stock heads have a ton of work in them. Putting the plate on, and then the plate's bolted onto the back here. You can see these Allen heads that help hold the plate on, and there's a strap that goes across this, although it's not with these heads. And it's just crazy the evolution how they are. Now I'm really pumped about the A3 head. That's why I've been using it for so long, because it has the best of both worlds. You know, the other thing about these heads is the weight. When you look at a stock head, here is 51.6 pounds. An A3 head bare, 26.8. So that's a big difference. I mean, you switch from a set of aluminum heads from steel, you're going to get about, what did I figured it out? Something like 49.66 pounds of weight savings going from iron 4V to aluminum heads. So that's nothing to sneeze at right there. Now, here's the video on the exhaust ports. So you stay tuned and check this out. Now kind of compare these. This is a pretty good close-up of the Cleveland 4V. You can see the area they always talk about being the dead area down here, which is where they cut the plate right through the middle, as you'll see. But it's pretty cool. Now here's the Pro Stock head. See if we can get a better light in there. Let's see. It might be a little bit better. But you can see how it's round ported like the A3. It's got the old Excel plug in there. Let's see. Kind of tough to see because it's dark. And then here's the A3. Yeah, that's the classic right there. So you saw the video on the exhaust. You kind of get the relationship on how they were developed and raised through their time of development, which was really the mid-pro stock years, the Cleveland heyday, they say, the mid-70s, 74, 5, 6, 7, 8. These heads are going to be awesome, I think. Steve's going to be pretty impressed. The combustion chambers on these, they have it stamped on the side. I don't know if that's the combustion chamber. It's 55.2. Normal Cleveland, I think, is 62 or 61. There's all these different debates on what the CCs are. But let me give you a little insight on these ports, too. Now, the thing with these Clevelands, the intake, they got fins in here. And I'll show you a close-up of these fins to direct the air towards a short turn, you know. It's pretty cool when you see it up close. You'll be like, wow. The other thing that's kind of unique about this, and they must do something. They must have worked. I heard that they didn't work great on the car, but they were a bench trick. That's what Morgan actually told me, but who knows. You know, you really got to race them and see what happens. But you can see they've been cut quite a bit. Right here. The bolt hole is almost cut through on these. So they either, I measured it, and they either angle milled it or just milled it, but at least 139 to 150 thousandths off this face. And you can tell that by the 4 that's almost cut off here and down here, the tip of it. Here we're kind of zooming in. You can see how thin that is. It's a little dark, but so it's a lot of work to mill that down, mill this down, machine it. So back in their day, I bet you these were a pretty expensive set of heads. And I'll show you now the intake ports, and you can see them up close. These are the Pro Stock heads. This is a set of A3 heads. This is a Blue Thunder A3, and the AFDs at Morgan ported. Now here's a kind of a unique thing to think about. Look at the size of this cylinder head. This is a Blue Thunder 3.6. When you compare it to the A3 Monster, there's a big weight difference too. 26.8 to 35.4. So that's like 8.6 pounds difference between here and here, just in the aluminum. So you know that things are much thicker, stronger. These heads come out of the box with little work, making close to 400. So Morgan's going to work on those next after the Secret A3s, which he has those now. And I'd sent him titanium intakes that I got from Dana Sniff, but those are 1136. The Secret A3 has 5/16. I'll put a picture of it on there. And I don't want to mess around because the guides are custom. They fit wicked, and I'll just get different valves. Figure out what to do with the other titanium intake and exhaust. I got something for them. Speaking of that, check this out. So these heads came with a set of these. So I just wanted to finish up with these Pro Stock heads. So they came with a set of these. If you remember these K-Motion, the K1000, that was the trick spring back when I was getting into cars. And they came with the Pro Stock Cleveland iron heads. Also came with this is a whole set of titanium retainers. Pretty trick. I like that. Steve will like that. Let me show you something else. Titanium intakes and exhaust for the Pro Stock heads. Light, nice. I think these are the old Ford Motorsport, or they kind of look like a D321s. There's a number on it, but I can't read it. We'll look at it later. But check this out. It's kind of cool to see this. It came in this old newspaper. And what is this paper? Wednesday, October 4th, 1978. The Detroit News. Nice. Witnesses say Russian tailed him during spy meetings. Almost sounds like articles we see today. So I kind of wanted to make this video to give you a little insight on the evolution of the 351 Cleveland head. You know, we know it's canted valve. There's some degrees. I'm not going to get into all that, what they are, because I don't even know them. Also, the fact that the exhaust ports are poorly flowing stock, and the best thing is to put the plate on them, which kind of replicates the A3 head. It's kind of cool to see that. And like I said, not a lot of people are running these heads. I do want to find a pair of these. That'll be my next thing I get. So here's a view of the Pro Stock intake. It's pretty cool looking, man. Let's see if we can zoom in there. You can see the dirt, and you can see the vein, how it's going towards a short side. There it is. So I think that's a pretty cool view. You don't see that very often. And then here's an A3 intake. You can see the difference right there. Kind of shrouded, but big. Much clearer. Now here's a Blue Thunder that's brand new. And here's the heads that I have. That's a brand new A3 that's not ported. And then the AFDs by Morgan. Figure out what to do with these. It's kind of neat to find stuff like that. Thanks, Jay, for hooking me up. And Steve. On my next video, what I'll do is kind of include some of the weights that I had for the rear brakes for the car. Won't go into it now because that's like a whole separate weight video. But I found that information, some other miscellaneous stuff you guys may find interesting on weights, and to see if it's worth changing your program. What I might do is dyno this 409. Just because I don't want to put it back in and have another problem. It's like every time I've dynoed a motor, it's broke or I've had a problem. Things have been fixable, but it saves a lot of headache. Also want to throw a shout out to Rob Wall, the Iron Maiden. Thanks, Rob. First shirt that I've had when I started this video series. The Maiden rules. I love that car, man. It must have sounded wicked in your garage or your neighborhood. But thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Throw another shout out to Mike Slusher, the Warlock. Get that car going. Hopefully you like this video too, Mike. Talk to you. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. You know, I've got a lot of subscribers now, like 580 or something, and I appreciate that. I want to thank the guys down under. Everyone's tuning in. It's pretty cool. I appreciate you guys giving me support, and appreciate you sharing my videos. And hopefully this is something that people get, they can use for their own program. and take something away from it. Appreciate it. Subscribe and share.